Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game. Need reliable housing for your animals? Animal Housing Solutions in Mayo, Florida builds custom coops, kennels, and shelters that are strong, durable, and designed with your animal's comfort in mind. Whether you need a large-scale kennel or a small custom chicken coop, they've got you covered. Quality craftsmanship, great service, and solutions built to last. That's the Animal Housing Solution promise. Check them out at Animal Housing Solutions on Facebook. Animal Housing Solutions, where your animals come first.
Me and son was hunting about 2 years ago. Coon season was in, and we were hunting two Stephens dogs, Jake and Rip. They're half brothers. They got different mothers, and they struck a track. We was standing on a hill, and they struck a track and run it down the hill through the creek and up the other side. The other side of the cow pasture with few trees in it, and they treed. Well, when they treed, we heard kind of a commotion, and Jake hushed. He quit treeing completely. Well, we can tell on our dog so that he's coming back toward us. And my son shines his light, and these coyotes are after him.
Oh,
he's coming right toward us. And of course, my son, shoots to try to get the coyotes away. Well, we don't hear anything from Rip. We see that his dog collar still at where we thought they were treed, and Rip's kind of got a low mouth anyway, and so it wasn't surprising that we didn't hear him that well. Well, we thought, they probably killed him, is what we thought.
mm-hmm.
And so we started down the hill, and my son says, "Look, there's a light up in the air." And I said, "Well, it looks like a helicopter to me." And he said, "I don't know, Dad, it's awful low for a helicopter." Well, we started on to him. And it was Rip, who was up in the tree about 150 feet.
Holy smokes.
Yes, treeing that coon. We could see the coon up there, and we could, Rip's up there just treeing away. And we're figuring now we go into panic mode because I'm too old to climb the tree, and my son's too short to climb the tree. So we're hunting on a relative of ours farm, so I told my son, I said, I'll run up and see if we can find a ladder or something by their barn, or maybe I can borrow my cousin's tractor and get up high enough where we can reach the branches. And he said, "Okay, I'll go, Dad. I've had some leg problems." So he started up the hill toward the house, and I could hear him up there. We weren't too awful far from the house. Well, about that time, Rip falls out of the tree.
Ooh.
Well, I figured, worst case scenario. And that rascal, he fell and knocked the breath out of him, but he got up in about 35 seconds and started treeing again.
Jeez.
So we got that coon and came to the house.
Man,
that just kind of shows you how tough them little dogs are.
Yeah. I've heard of some awful horror stories of dogs falling out of trees. Either killing them or a friend of mine had a dog fall out of a tree and had to have his leg amputated, and so.
Oh, wow.
Just bad stuff,
them little black
dogs
sure. will get you into all kind of trouble.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself, Danny?
I'm Danny Smith. I live in Kentucky, and I'm the registrar for the Stephens Breeders Association. I've had these dogs since I was a kid. My dad started with them in 1971. And I'm 61, be 62 this year, and I've had them basically most of my hunting life.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it is. I strayed away a little bit with some hounds, particularly some plots. But Dad always kept a black dog, always. Okay. Even if we had hounds, he always kept a little black Stephens dog.
Very cool.
I guess I'm one of the few left that got to meet Carl McConnell and Hugh Stephens.
Yeah.
Most everybody else is probably going on.
I don't know much about Carl. Obviously, I know Hugh is pretty much the founder and breed's named after him, for crying out loud. So,
Yeah. Hugh and Carl were big friends. You know, Carl lived in Gate City, Virginia. He was a barber by trade, and so he didn't get to travel much because being a barber he had to work every Saturday.
gotcha.
But he was a hunter, a real hunter. And I got to meet him. I think I was 14 or 15. He had a female out of Mountain Ring, and he wanted my dad to breed to my dad's old Pete dog. So we met at Lloyd Gregory's house. And he looks just like the pictures that you see at the Mountain Cur Club or in the Mountain Cur books, where it's got Hugh and Carl and A.D. Ledbetter. And Carl's got that little string tie on, that little hat and sport jacket. That's exactly the way he looked that day.
That's funny. A lot of times people don't look the way you think they're going to look or what you see.
Oh, I know. I didn't expect. Yeah, and he was a little fella too. Of course, he was a big man, but he was a little fella.
So what about these little black dogs? Always, even when you strayed away, you came back to them. What made you keep them? Like, what made you stick with them?
They're intelligent. They are so intelligent. I've got a 6-month-old puppy now, and took her out. The first squirrel she seen, she treed on it day before yesterday. I took her out today, and she'd never been in the woods, and she acted like she knew what she was doing. She don't know what she's doing, but I've never had too much trouble getting one to tree. And people ask me to describe them, and I always say they're almost like a miniature hound with the intelligence of a cur, because most Stephens dogs are open on the track. And Hugh bred them to coon hunt. He was basically a coon hunter, but he said they wouldn't let you starve to death treeing squirrels either. And they can work a track like a cold nose blue tick, and and move it, not waller it all night, and tree it like an old hound would. That's why I like them so much.
Yeah. How big are your dogs?
My females, I got 4 females now, and they all weigh about 30 pounds.
Okay.
My males, I don't have any males. I've Rip that I just told you about. My buddy Tom in Tennessee has him now, and James Crump has got my other male Jake, and they're about 40 pounds. I like them, small to medium. Our breed standard goes to 55 pounds.
Okay.
But I usually like my males about 40 and my females about 30.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I've had some bigger ones too. The dog I had that I won a lot with, named Leroy, he was 50 pounds.
Gotcha.
So
I think that's honestly been my biggest thing about. I looked into getting a Stephens, and my biggest thing is I just like a dog that's I don't mind if 40 pounds is all right, but
yeah,
I just like something. My ideal weight for especially a cur dog or even a hound, like I like a dog between 40 and 60. It's kind of like my sweet spot is where I wanted it. And so that was my hang up with the Stephens dogs, were just like a lot of them were just a little on the smaller side for what I wanted.
Yeah, they are. Some of them are, but I tell you won't find any more gritty. My little female that I've got now, there ain't nothing that you can't get her off a coon even after it's dead. I mean, she has no quit in her.
Well, I learned a long time ago. It doesn't matter the size of the dog. That doesn't mean much. A friend of mine and me were coon hunting one night. We had a young kid with us, and this kid shot a coon, and he didn't do a very good job, and it came out with a lot of life in it. And he had 2 big blue ticks, and all they did was stand there and bay it. And I had about a 40, I don't know, she was a 45, 50-pound cur dog, and she was fat. She'd been spayed, so she carried X, and then was allowed to get fat, so I never got her back down trim. She always carried extra weight no matter what I did. But she's the one who went in there and killed this coon, and it was just like these 2 big dogs that are, well over 100 pounds to put together. They're both probably 150 to 175 pounds of blue tick here between the 2 of them, and the little 50-pound cur dog is what did it. So.
Oh, I know. little Stephens dog that probably most folks remember me having was one called Little J. He was out of Clements Jr. And he weighed 28 pounds. He was a little fella. He was Grand Night champion, a Grand Squirrel champion, World Squirrel champion, all that stuff. But I found him one day in the edge of a cornfield, locked up jaw to jaw with a groundhog. And neither one of them would let go. That's just how gritty.
Are tough.
Yeah, they're pretty wicked. But they were both laying there growling at each other, a hold of each other, and neither one of them would let go.
So through all these years, what's your most memorable dog?
Probably Little J.
Okay.
Probably Little J. I didn't train Little J. I bought Little J when he was about 4. But he was the only one that I've ever had that was as good a coon dog as he was a squirrel dog.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter. You could squirrel hunt him all day long, and he would tree squirrel after squirrel. And you could take him that night, and he would never even think about treeing a squirrel.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was that one special dog that I had.
Yeah.
There was I went through a spell where I just squirrel hunted my Stephens and didn't coon hunt too much, and then I'm kind of back into coon hunting them all now and not squirrel hunting as much. But he's the only one I ever had that was as good on both as any I've ever had. I've
never been a big squirrel hunter, but when I got started, I started with mountain curs and I hunted with quite a few dogs. And I would say, I've hunted with several dogs that could do both well, but you typically see they favor one or the other. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. And with the Stephens dog, if you're going to make a squirrel dog out of a Stephens, do not show them a coon until they're at least 2 or 3 years old, because they will automatically switch over, because that's what they were bred for.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're a special dog to me. Always have been.
Mm-hmm. Well, since you've been involved with this breed for so long, I mean, I know a little bit of the history, but I like history, and maybe if there's something about how this breed kind of separated, and and obviously you just said you knew Hugh a little bit and Carl, so I'm sure you probably know a little more of the history than what most of the listeners of this podcast do. So
I don't know if I do or not, but in I think it was 1965, Hugh was the president of the Mountain Cur Club. And then about that time, they separated. Hugh liked the black dog, and he liked the long tail. Of course, most curs had long tails back then. And he liked the open trailer. So Hugh decided, he talked to A.D. Ledbetter. I don't know what all happened there. I got a few letters that indicate there was, few hurt feelings, but anyway, Hugh and Carl and oh my goodness, his name is escaping me now. Eugene Hall. He was the registrar for the Mountain Cur Club. So those 3 guys separated and started the Stephens in probably, I want to say 68 to 69. I think the first yearbook was 71 or 72.
Okay.
So, and then Eugene Hall come over with them, and he was the registrar till 1981, and Jim Stephens took it over. And 3 years ago, Jim asked me if I would take it. And so we've only had 3 registrars, and since 1968 or so, which is great.
Absolutely.
And up till 1980, our dogs had to be what they called certified. You had to have 3 witnesses that dog would run and tree a coon, have it notarized by a notary public.
Wow.
And I think that's why our dogs are kind of still around, because we've only registered about 2,700 dogs, a little over that, maybe 28 in the whole history of our thing. But we've always had some pretty good tree dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and matter of fact, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they went back to having them certified. You know.
Now I know.
At least you knew you was getting something.
Oh, absolutely. No, me and a friend of mine, we were recently talking about that. I've got leopard dogs, and that used to be case with leopards as well, and we were talking about that. How, in a sense, we wouldn't mind if there was some, like, you know, form or fashion of you had to prove a dog could tree a coon before you could permanently register it.
Yeah, we did that up until 1980.
So,
And now you don't permanently register ours till they're at least a year old.
yeah.
You just get a puppy paper, and then when they're a year old, you're supposed to register them.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you a chance, you know, for an honest man to say, hey, this dog's not going to make it, so he needs to be cold
Yeah.
or whatever. So I was down to Battle of the Breeds a couple of weeks ago, and it was really good to see the different cur guys kind of get back together. I think that's the first time in a long time that's ever taken place.
I thought that was a really cool event. I wish I could have made it down there to that. That was, you know, you got the Kemmers, the Stephens, and the Mountain Curs all kind of coming back together.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I hope that continues.
Yeah, in my opinion. I think it would be advantageous if the OMCBA would honor Stephens and Kemmers like the UMCA does. I think it would be to their benefit.
Yeah.
You know, Stephens and Kemmers broke off and kind of did their own thing. You know, basically took a line of dogs and made a breed out of a line and kept them as pure as anything else. You know what I mean? I'm not saying there's never been anything crossed into either one of them, but for the most part,
yeah,
pretty much. So
I was looking at the
opinion.
I was looking at the 1965 Mountain Cur yearbook. I got a copy of the 64, 65, and most of the dogs back then were black or brindle.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't hurt my feelings, or I wish that we could all get together, even if we kept our registry separate,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the hounds do, but still come together for our own big cur deal.
Yeah. Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkeys motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well.
You know, because cur dogs are like everything else. I'm afraid as we get older, that they may fade off the scene at some point, and I hate to see that.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Yeah, it's unfortunately people hunting with tree dogs in general is getting fewer and fewer. You know, coon hides aren't worth anything.
Yeah, no.
You know, land to hunt is getting harder and harder to find as places are getting subdivided, and you know, kids are just kind of moving away from the outdoors, and so it in general not looking great.
I know it's a sad day coming, but it's probably coming. My son is he keeps them too.
Well, that's good.
But he's got a daughter, but she's too little to hunt. But I'm hoping that one of these days we got some more in the family, that because I started from a great lineage. My dad had Stephens dogs. My uncle had Stephens dogs. Wrote the column back in the 70s.
Okay.
So we've had them in our family ever since I've been a kid. And I'd hate for something to happen to them, even all cur dogs in general. Because my dad used to talk about when he was a kid back in the southeastern Kentucky about a black ringneck dog that they had, and what a versatile, intelligent, good dog. I guess that's why he wanted to keep a Stephens dog all the time, because he kind of related them through that.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why we've had them. Never had much trouble getting one to tree, and they've always paid off pretty much.
Yeah.
So.
Nah, I think it's pretty cool, the history, and didn't realize that only 2,800 dogs in all these years. That's not a lot of dogs. I mean, and especially for it to be still going. That's something to be proud of, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we have, well, it ain't us, but the breed has several people that just haven't registered them. You just, they don't care about it or whatever. But the dogs we've registered just over 2,700.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was looking, getting ready for our conversation. I still haven't went through. Jim Stephens sent me 2 file cabinets full of
I'm sure.
just stuff, and I was looking at some of the old papers, and I came across a dog of my dad's, and his registration number was 275.
That's cool.
And he wasn't the first one we had. I didn't take time to look back at the first ones, but it's kind of neat. I don't think about having them that long,
Mm-hmm.
but it's pretty neat. Kind of a neat thing to have.
Absolutely, and not only like that you've had them for a long time, but just that your dad had them, and just that family legacy and that family tie.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he's had his own line of dogs for a little while, and he's an older guy, and he said, "I hope my son keeps it up," and I'm like. So I think he will. I said, I don't know his son well by any means, but just what little bit I do know about his son, I said, I think he will. I said, just because I said, he'll always have that tie to you. I said, that's why. I said, it's not necessarily the dog, it's the fact that it's the same dogs you're hunting, so.
Oh, yeah, it's, my dad died about 6 years ago, right around the COVID time, at the beginning of COVID. And I'd go coon hunting, usually on Friday nights. I was working back then. And every Saturday morning, I'd go over and Mom would fix breakfast. And even after Dad got too old to hunt, I'd have to give him a hunt report of everything that went on.
Absolutely. That's
and
awesome.
I still miss that. I really do.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. That's pretty cool. Well, I need some more stories about these black dogs.
Let's see. I told you about Little J. My dad got a pup out of Little J. Her name was Holly. She's one of our All-Americans now. My son was about 12 or 13, and he was hunting her in the squirrel hunt down at Owensboro when we had our annual meeting in Owensboro. And she was Dad's dog. He trained her, but my son, he just kind of took her over. He just kid. And he hunted her in the squirrel hunt. And she won the cast. They treated 3 or 4 squirrels. I don't remember how many it was now. But, we didn't have tracking collars then or any of that stuff. Well, she didn't come in. And the guide was telling my son, the rest of the cast, well, you really need to get this scorecard back to the club or they're going to throw your points out and, you're not going to win. So him being a little boy, worried to death that he has lost his grandpa's dog, he reluctantly come back, and I'd been out on a squirrel hunt too. I didn't do any good, but I was already back, and I seen him when he come up. I could tell something was wrong. He wasn't crying, but he was at the point of tears. And he said, Dad, I got to tell Grandpa I can't find Holly nowhere. And I knew the guy that took him on the guide since we'd been down there a lot. And he said, Mr. Smith, he said, I'll take you back out there where we hunted. And he said, she'll probably be there where we parked or something. He said, if not, just follow this trail back in the woods where we hunted. And I said, okay. So he told his grandpa, my dad, and Dad said, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So anyway, he took me and my son back out there. We followed him out there, and he left. And Josh told me, he said, now, Dad, we hunted right back through here. I said, well, let's walk, because she wasn't back there. Wasn't, around the truck area. So I walked, I don't know. Man, it was a long way. Felt like a mile. I'm sure it wasn't that far. And I could barely hear her treat. I said, well, Josh, I hear her. And there was a big ravine, and there was a log laying across it. So I told my son, I said, you stay here, let me shinny across this log, and I'll go get her. And I went probably another 300 or 400 yards. She was treeing on a big oak tree and had a big coon sitting in it. Been treed probably 3 or 4 hours after she'd squirrel hunted for 2 hours.
Yeah.
We got her and brought her back to the club. Of course, that was the story of the day. And Howard Stephens, Hugh's brother, tried for 2 months to buy her after that. He said, I gotta have her. I gotta have her. Of course, she died at our house. We wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
She was a good one, though. My son killed 22 squirrels with her one day.
Nice.
Yeah, she was a crackerjack dog. She's a lot like her daddy. So,
Very
it's
cool.
it's been a good journey.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Of course, it's like everything else. There's been a few duds along the way,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want to hear about them. You want to hear about the good ones, right?
Unfortunately, that happens.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So.
We got Jake, that dog I was telling you about earlier. Me and my son was coon hunting him one night, and I had an old plot dog. I always liked to plot, so I had him when I didn't have anything to start my Stephens with. So a friend of mine had him, and I got him because he was a close hunter. But anyway, we had him, and Jake was a young dog. And my son wanted to go hunting, and it was cold that night. But he said, "Let's go, my dad. Let's go." I said, "Well, I got to work in the morning. I got to be at work at 5:30." And so we went hunting, and the old plot struck a coon. Jake fell in there with him, and we had trackers on them then, had those Garmin 220s,
Okay.
and all at once they just disappeared. I mean, they weren't that far, 400 yards, just disappeared. And we've hunted this farm for 20 years. What's going on? So we went to where the last signal we got, and these dogs were in a cave on the side of this creek.
Jeez.
And we could hear them down in there fighting a coon or something. And well, I started hollering and trying to get them out. Well, I got the plot. I don't know how he come out of there because the hole wasn't big enough, but he come out and we tied him up. And Jake wouldn't come out. You could hear him in there with that coon, just they was getting after it. And we didn't know what to do. It's getting close to midnight. I've got to go to work in the morning. And finally, we decided, well, we'll go back to that same house where my dog was in the tree and see if we can find a shovel or something sitting outside. And my son went, couldn't find no shovel, found a fence post, metal fence post. So we started digging down, and we dug down about 3 or 4 foot from where they went in, and he was still 2 feet beyond that.
Jeez.
And he was not coming out. I mean, not. And so we finally went back to the truck. I don't know what to do, Johnny's getting cold. And he's cold. I'm cold. And so I said, now, if he's not here by 1:30, Josh, we're going to have to leave him, and you'll have to come back and get him in the morning. And so we just watched him on the Garmin, watched about another hour later. I was getting ready to leave. And he finally come out. And Josh went one way and I went the other, and he was absolutely covered with mud. I got pictures of it, just covered with mud where he'd been in there with that coon for at least 4.5 or 5 hours.
Dang, yeah.
They're gritty things, I'll tell you. They sure are.
Sounds like it. Mm-mm-mm.
And let's see, I can tell you about Leroy. He was probably my best just coon dog.
Okay.
I got him from Bob Frazier in Ohio. And I'd hunt Leroy a lot by himself. And we were hunting on some WMA land. And when you hunted there, we usually, went straight back from the truck. Well, Leroy struck a track and he went left. If you go left, you get off the WMA area pretty quick. And he went over there and treed across the road in a guy's backyard. And I thought, oh, here I am by myself. And I don't know what I'm going to do. So I just started to him. Well, by the time I got to him, that fellow was standing on the back porch. And I thought, well, this is not going to end well. Because he's hollering at my dog. And I guess he sees my light coming over the hill. And he's hollering at me, and he's saying words that I've never heard before. He's saying words that I have heard and didn't like, but he's saying he's making up new words. They're so bad. And get yours, and he's the last house. His house borders the WMA, and he's giving me down the road. So I'm easing in by myself. I'm a little nervous here. So I'm trying to hook Leroy up on the leash, and when I hook him up, the guy says, "Aren't you going to kill that blankety blank coon? He's been getting in my trash for 2 weeks." I'm thinking, "What, buddy? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You're talking to me the way you've been talking." He let me shoot that coon out to him.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I thought, buddy, you live right on the edge of the WMA. You ought to know this is going to happen.
Well, at the same point, be out there yelling at you for your dog tree, but yet then want you to kill a coon.
Yeah, because he was been getting in his trash.
Crazy.
So, yeah, that's something. So,
What else does the Stephens Breeders Association have going on the rest of this year?
The rest of this year, all we have left is in October 1st, second weekend in October, is our annual, we call it our homecoming hunt.
Okay.
It's our annual board of directors meeting, and we have a new thing that we started 4 years ago, and we done it in honor of Jim Stephens after he quit being our register. We call it the Jim Stephens Classic Coon Hunt. Nice. It's where all of our dogs hunt together. We draw it in cast, but no night champions and grand night champions. It doesn't matter. And the winner of that hunt gets a green jacket. You know how they have a green jacket at the Masters golf tournament.
Okay.
We'll give you a green jacket, a green embroidered jacket. Says you're the Jim Stephens Classic winner for that year.
That's pretty cool.
And that's turned into a really good hunt for us. And it's just for Stephens dog, nobody else.
Yep.
And so we really that's turned into probably our biggest night of hunt.
Okay.
Because the rest of the weekend's NKC hunts.
Yeah.
And, all breeds. But that we really had some good hunts. And this will be our 5th year doing that.
Nice.
Giving away our 5th green jacket.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we've had, let's see, Dale and Kelly Stanley have won one apiece. Jimmy Tipton, I think you did a podcast with him.
I did.
He's won one, and I've won one. I won in spring of 2024, so we've given 4 away so far.
Nice.
So we haven't had any repeat winners yet.
Sounds like it's rigged. All you guys are serving in the association.
So, yeah, Carl Winsky, I think you did a podcast with him.
I did.
He lives about 20 minutes from me.
Okay.
And I took his little Stephens dog to a fella Saturday to breed a female too.
Nice.
But he's the only other guy that's got Stephens that's even close other than my son.
Okay.
Everybody else is in Western Kentucky or Tennessee or out of state.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to hunt with hounds most of the time if I go with somebody.
That's all right. I'm sure them little Stephens dogs hold their own.
They do. I hunt with a fella's got a nice English red tick, and she's right there. She's right there with them. Matter of fact, another guy goes with us sometimes says, "Now, if that little black dog ain't hit the tree, I don't think there's a coon up there." I thought that was a pretty good compliment.
Absolutely.
Because she's not the best one I ever had, but I like it if somebody else thinks, "Hey, if she don't tree, there may not be a coon."
Yeah. Well, good deal. You got anything else?
Let's see. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I got the story about old Pete. My dad, my uncle had a Walker coonhound, and old Pete struck a track one night, and it was so cold, the track was, that the Walker couldn't smell it till they got close to the tree, and old Pete and that Walker treated together, and old Pete was so, Dad had him overweight. He got choked down while he was trying to take care of the coon at the end. But he had that cold of a nose.
Yeah.
That them hounds couldn't even smell it. till they got almost to the tree. And
It's
that's what I like about the Stephens is they got a nose and a brain how to use that nose.
yeah.
Yeah, that I won 2001, I think it was, the American Squirrel 900's World Breeders' Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I won was because Little Jay could trail a squirrel up. And another pretty famous mountain cur dog, she just couldn't smell it, and he trailed it up and treed the squirrel. And that was in the final cast, that was not what won, that one squirrel. Bad windy afternoon.
Yeah.
After we'd hunted all morning. And it was all about the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing the mountain curs have kind of got away from, I think, is that nose.
I would agree, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I have enjoyed talking to you. I hope I've given you something you can use.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed this very much. I really appreciate it, Danny.
Yes, sir. Glad to do it. I'm honored, by the way.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.